The vastness of space was quiet, almost too quiet, as the alien fleet cruised through the darkness of the galaxy. Hundreds of ships, sleek and shining with advanced technology, moved together in perfect unison. They had been traveling for weeks, and now the destination was just ahead. Earth, a small, seemingly insignificant planet. For centuries, the alien species had observed the stars and planets around them, cataloging life forms, studying civilizations, and recording their growth. But Earth had always been just a distant blip on their radar. That is, until recently. The sudden spike in energy signatures had caught their attention. It was a mystery they couldn't ignore. The alien leaders had discussed the matter at length. Earth had been a primitive planet for as long as anyone could remember. The inhabitants had no advanced space technology, no grand fleet. They lived on the surface, developing slowly, like any other species the aliens had encountered. But now, something had changed. The energy readings from Earth were growing stronger, and there was a strange signal coming from the planet, something they hadn't seen before. "Should we go?" one of the commanders asked. His voice was filled with curiosity. The others were silent, their expressions unreadable behind their helmets. But in their hearts, there was excitement. The unknown always sparked intrigue, especially when it came to a planet like Earth, where so much was yet to be discovered. The leader of the fleet, a tall, imposing figure named Zethar, nodded slowly. "Yes, we will investigate. There may be something worth learning here. Perhaps the humans have discovered something that could benefit us." And so, the fleet moved in, approaching the blue and green planet. From their vantage point in space, it seemed like any other world, lush, full of life. But nothing extraordinary. The ships moved closer, their sensors scanning for any signs of life, any clue to the strange energy surges. They detected human cities, large industrial complexes, but nothing that suggested the humans were capable of space travel, let alone building something that could challenge the might of the alien fleet. The humans, as the aliens assumed, had no idea they were being watched. They were still caught up in their daily lives, unaware of the visitors from the stars. As the fleet hovered in orbit, Zethar watched through the main viewport of his ship, the bright blue world beneath him. The planet was beautiful, full of potential. Yet it still seemed primitive. No ships, no weapons, no signs of any advanced technology. "Perhaps they have nothing to offer," Zethar muttered under his breath. "But we should still make contact. They may surprise us." With a wave of his hand, he ordered the fleet to descend toward Earth's surface, preparing to make a peaceful first contact. But as the ships moved closer to the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. A large, dark shape appeared on the edge of the planet's horizon. At first, the alien fleet thought it was a passing meteor or space debris. But as they got closer, it became clear that it was something far more significant. It was a ship. A massive ship, unlike anything they had ever seen before. The alien commanders were silent as they watched the ship. Its size was enormous, easily the size of their largest warships. But unlike the smooth, sleek designs of the alien fleet, this ship was rough and bulky, its surface scarred by years of use. The ship was dark, almost black, with strange markings across its hull. It seemed like an ancient relic, something from a time long past. Zethar's eyes narrowed as he stared at the ship. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice laced with confusion. This is not what we expected." The alien fleet had seen countless ships from many different civilizations, but none had ever looked like this. The human vessel seemed old, outdated even, yet there was a strange energy around it, a pulse that felt alive. The strange ship was still a mystery, but it was now impossible to ignore. It was powerful. Zethar could feel it in his bones. Without a word, the fleet adjusted course to approach the human ship. The closer they got, the more questions grew. How had such a primitive species built a ship of this size? How had they managed to create something so powerful looking, despite having no advanced technology? This was no ordinary ship. The alien commanders were on edge. They couldn't explain what they were seeing. The human battleship seemed passive, unmoving in space. It didn't react to the presence of the fleet. It didn't fire any weapons or send any signals. For a moment, the aliens considered that it might be a derelict, a forgotten ship left to drift in the vastness of space. But there was something about it that made them hesitate. The strange energy readings, the eerie silence. It was as if the ship itself was waiting for something. Zethar's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. Was it a trap? Was this a test of some kind? The human race was not supposed to have ships like this. They were not supposed to have anything like this. Yet here it was, a towering, imposing structure in space, staring back at them as if daring them to come closer. "Send a probe," Zethar ordered. His voice was steady, but inside, he was anything but calm. He had seen many things in his long career as a commander, but nothing like this. Nothing like what he was seeing now. The alien fleet launched a small reconnaissance probe toward the human battleship, its sensors gathering information as it approached. For a brief moment, everything seemed to be in order. The probe transmitted data back to the fleet, showing the ship's surface, the markings, the strange power it was emitting. There was nothing normal about this vessel. Then, just as the probe was about to get close enough to transmit more detailed data, the unexpected happened. The human battleship's massive engines roared to life. The entire fleet shook from the sudden burst of energy. The alien ships immediately went on high alert, weapon systems coming online in an instant. But it was too late to react. The human ship's engines flared, and with a terrifying burst of speed, it shot toward the alien fleet. The alien commanders could do nothing but watch in shock and awe as the giant ship moved like a predator, swift and unstoppable. Zethar's heart raced. This wasn't a passive ship. This was no derelict. The humans had been waiting. And now, they were ready for a fight. The human battleship closed the distance quickly, and just as the aliens tried to react, the ship unleashed a powerful burst of energy that sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. In that moment, the aliens realized they had greatly underestimated humanity. They had come to Earth expecting to find a weak and unremarkable species. Instead, they had found something they had never imagined, a force to be reckoned with. The mysterious human battleship, once thought to be an outdated relic, was very much alive, and it was far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. As the fleet regrouped, preparing for what could be the biggest challenge of their lives, one thing became clear: Earth and its human inhabitants were not as helpless as they had believed. In fact, they might just be the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. And this was only the beginning. The alien fleet, still reeling from the unexpected appearance of the human battleship, quickly regrouped and attempted to assess the situation. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Zethar, the fleet commander, stood at the helm of his ship, staring out at the chaos unfolding before him. His thoughts were racing, and for the first time in years, he felt doubt creeping in. The humans had been nothing more than a curiosity, a planet on the outskirts of the galaxy, and now they were proving to be a formidable adversary. The massive human battleship had launched itself toward the alien fleet with terrifying speed, unleashing a series of powerful energy blasts that sent shockwaves through the alien ships. The fleet had been caught off guard, and several of their vessels had taken direct hits, their shields flickering and failing under the onslaught. The humans were not the helpless species they had imagined, and their weapons were unlike anything the aliens had encountered before. Zethar's mind was sharp as he issued orders to his commanders. Regroup. Form a defensive perimeter around the flagship. We cannot allow them to breach our defenses again. His voice was steady, but inside, his heart was pounding. The human ship was unlike anything they had ever seen, a relic, yet brimming with raw power. It was clear now that the humans had developed technology far beyond their initial expectations. The alien fleet quickly began to adjust its tactics. They had been designed to fight battles in space, but nothing could have prepared them for the ferocity of the human battleship. The human ship was agile, darting in and out of the alien formations, dodging their weapons with incredible precision. It was as if the ship was alive, adapting to every move the aliens made, countering their attacks with an unmatched level of skill. "Deploy the interceptors," Zethar barked, his eyes fixed on the human ship as it darted through the void. Smaller, faster ships were launched from the alien vessels, swarming toward the human battleship like a flock of birds. The goal was clear: to surround the human ship and overwhelm it with sheer numbers. But the humans were ready. As the alien interceptors closed in, the human battleship unleashed another devastating blast of energy, cutting through the alien ships with ease. The interceptors were torn apart in an instant, their shields no match for the concentrated firepower of the human vessel. Zethar's grip on his command console tightened. He had expected resistance, but not this level of aggression. The human ship was no longer just a curiosity. It was a weapon, and a deadly one at that. Meanwhile, on the surface of the planet, the humans had no idea of the full scale of the battle unfolding in space. They had not anticipated such an overwhelming response from the alien fleet. The battle had begun to escalate quickly, and the human commanders were doing their best to maintain control of the situation. Inside the human battleship, Captain Alicia Reynolds paced back and forth, her eyes focused on the strategic displays in front of her. The alien fleet had made their move, and now it was time for humanity to prove their worth. The humans had fought wars for centuries, and they had always come out on top. But this was different. The aliens were not just another enemy. They were a threat to everything humanity had built. "We can't afford to let them regroup," Captain Reynolds said, her voice steady but urgent. "Take out their flagship. Disable their command vessel. If we break their leadership, we break their will to fight." The crew of the battleship responded instantly, their movements synchronized and precise. They knew what was at stake. Humanity had long been seen as weak, insignificant, but today they would show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Back in space, Zethar watched in disbelief as his fleet continued to falter under the relentless assault from the human battleship. The once confident alien fleet was now in disarray, their ships struggling to stay in formation as the humans tore through them with ease. It was as if the human ship was 2 steps ahead, anticipating every move the aliens made and countering them with ruthless efficiency. "What is this?" Zethar muttered to himself, his eyes fixed on the human vessel. "How can they be so powerful? How can they have this kind of technology?" He knew the answer was simple. They had been wrong about humanity. The humans were not a primitive species. They were something far more dangerous. Their curiosity had led them to this moment, and now they were facing the consequences. As the battle raged on, Zethar began to realize that the humans had more than just advanced technology. They had something deeper, something that the alien fleet had failed to understand. The humans had heart. They had the will to fight, to survive, no matter the odds. "Commander," one of his officers interrupted his thoughts. "We've lost communication with the flagship. They've disabled our primary systems. We're vulnerable." Zethar's heart sank as he realized the full extent of the situation. The alien fleet was being torn apart, and their once imposing advantage was slipping away. The humans had turned the tide of the battle, and there was nothing the aliens could do to stop it. "We can't win this battle," Zethar said quietly, his voice filled with resignation. "We've underestimated them. They are not like any species we've encountered before." The alien fleet's morale plummeted as they realized the truth. The humans had not only fought back, they had shown the alien invaders that they were a force to be reckoned with. As the final blows were dealt to the alien ships, Zethar made the decision to retreat. The cost of curiosity had been too great. The human battleship stood victorious in the empty void of space, its weapons powered down, its crew exhausted but triumphant. They had fought for survival, and they had won. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would haunt them for a long time. In the wake of the battle, the human fleet began to make contact with Earth. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be trifled with. They had proven themselves, and they would stand strong against any force that sought to challenge them. As the alien fleet retreated into the depths of space, nursing their wounds and regrouping for the inevitable day they would face humanity again, one thing was certain. Earth was no longer the unknown, weak planet it had once been. It had become a power in its own right, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien fleet, now severely crippled by the relentless assault from the human battleship, began to retreat into the distant reaches of space. Their once proud ships, so advanced and powerful, now limped away, their hulls scared and damaged, their crews shaken by the unexpected loss. The quiet of space seemed to mock their defeat, the vast emptiness stretching out before them, as if the universe itself had witnessed the humiliation of their invasion. Zethar, the commanding officer of the fleet, stood at the command console of his flagship, staring out into the cold, unfeeling void. His mind was clouded with confusion and disbelief. How could this have happened? How could a species as primitive as humanity, one he had assumed was weak and insignificant, have delivered such a crushing blow? The answer was simple, yet it was something he had never expected to face. Humanity had fought back with everything they had. His thoughts were interrupted by the voice of one of his officers, shaking with fear. "Commander Zephyr, the fleet. We've lost nearly half our ships. The human battleship disabled our flagship and took out our command vessel. We're running on limited power now. We can't continue." Zethar clenched his fists, feeling a wave of frustration and anger surge through him. They had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, expecting to overwhelm a primitive species with superior technology. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous, an enemy that would not be easily defeated. Humanity's resilience, their sheer determination to protect their home, had proven stronger than the aliens had ever imagined. "We can't afford to lose more ships," Zethar muttered to himself. His voice was barely audible, his words tinged with regret. "We must retreat and regroup. There will be no victory for us here." But even as the retreat order was given, Zethar knew that they had made a grave mistake. This battle was only the beginning. The human race had proven they could fight, that they had the will to survive. And that was something the alien fleet had never encountered before. The aliens had thought of Earth as a quiet, unimportant planet in the vast expanse of the galaxy, a planet ripe for conquest. They had assumed that the humans were weak, primitive, and easy to conquer. But now, they had learned that the humans were anything but that. The retreating alien ships scattered, their engines roaring to life as they pushed through the darkness of space. Zethar watched them go, but the sight didn't comfort him. In fact, it made him feel more uneasy than ever before. The humans had seen them, they had fought them, and they had won. What would the humans do next? Would they hunt them down? Would they try to communicate, to understand why the aliens had attacked in the first place? Zethar couldn't shake the feeling that Earth and humanity had just become something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. On Earth, the human fleet remained in orbit, their battleships still positioned around the planet. The crew of the human flagship, led by Captain Alicia Reynolds, was a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. They had won the battle, but the victory had not come without cost. The alien fleet may have retreated, but the humans knew this was far from over. The aliens would return, of that much they were certain. Captain Reynolds stood at the helm of her ship, her hands gripping the console in front of her. Her face was set in a grim expression, her eyes focused on the vastness of space outside the viewport. Though they had won, there was no time for celebration. The battle had been a test, and humanity had passed it. But now they had to prepare for what would come next. The aliens would regroup, repair their damaged ships, and they would return. "We've done it," a voice from behind her said, breaking the silence. It was Commander Harris, her second in command. "We've won. The aliens are retreating. Alicia nodded but didn't smile. Yes, we've won, but only this battle. The war is far from over. We need to be ready. We can't let our guard down. The alien fleet may be retreating, but they will come back. Harris looked at her with a mixture of respect and concern. You're right. They're not just going to give up. They'll come back stronger, and we need to be ready for them. Alicia turned to face her crew, who were busy preparing the ship for further action. We've proven something today. We've proven that humanity is not to be underestimated. We've shown them that we're not a weak species, not a primitive race waiting to be conquered. We fought back, and we won. But this is just the beginning. We need to show the rest of the galaxy that we are a force to be reckoned with. Her words resonated with the crew. There was a sense of pride in the air, but it was tempered with the knowledge that the fight was far from over. The battle had only just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. Prepare for the next phase, Alicia ordered. We need to reinforce our defenses, rebuild our strength, and be ready. The aliens will come back, and when they do, we'll be ready for them. As the human fleet continued to monitor the retreating alien ships, there was an air of determination on Earth. The battle had been a wake-up call, not just for the alien invaders, but for humanity as well. They had shown what they were capable of, and they had proven to themselves and to the rest of the galaxy that they would not go down without a fight. In the silence of space, Zethar's thoughts echoed in the void. His fleet had been humbled, and his people had been forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The humans were not a species to be underestimated. Earth had been just a curiosity, a little blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. Now, it was a symbol of something greater, the resilience of a species that had fought against all odds to protect its home. Zethar's retreat was only temporary. The war was far from over, but for now, humanity had earned their victory. The aliens had learned the hard way that curiosity could be a dangerous thing, especially when it led them to a species as fierce and determined as humanity. And as the alien fleet disappeared into the depths of space, the humans on Earth began to prepare for the next challenge. They had won this battle, but they knew that there would be many more to come. And when the aliens returned, humanity would be ready to face them once again. As the alien fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving Earth behind, a tense silence settled over the human fleet. The battle was over, but the scars left on both sides were deep. The alien ships, once powerful and intimidating, had been humbled by humanity's unexpected ferocity. On Earth, the people were beginning to understand the enormity of what had transpired. They had been thrust into the galactic spotlight, not as a forgotten species on the fringe of the universe, but as a force capable of standing toe-to-toe with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The world's leaders, having been closely monitoring the situation, now gathered in a high-security briefing room. The war had only just begun, and their task was far from over. While the alien fleet had retreated, there was no question in anyone's mind that they would return, stronger and more determined to succeed. Earth had been a battlefield, and humanity had fought valiantly, but the greater war had only just started. Captain Alicia Reynolds, the commander of the human flagship, had been the center of attention ever since the battle. Her tactical brilliance, as well as the courage of her crew, had turned the tide against the alien invaders. She stood before a massive screen in the war room, her face set in a resolute expression. Behind her, a map of Earth's defense zones was displayed, along with the status of the remaining alien fleet. "We've won this battle, but we cannot be complacent," Alicia said, addressing the assembly of military commanders and political leaders. Her voice was calm but firm, the weight of their responsibility clear in every word. "The aliens are regrouping, and they will be back. When they return, they'll come with everything they have." General Marcus Lee, the head of the Planetary Defense Force, stepped forward. "We've learned a lot from this fight. We've seen their tactics, their technology, and we've seen that they underestimated us. That's their biggest mistake." Underestimating humanity will be their undoing, Alicia agreed. But we need to make sure we're ready for the next phase. We can't afford to wait for them to strike first. We need to take the fight to them, while we still have the advantage. The room was silent for a moment, as the weight of her words sank in. The battle had been a wake-up call, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Humanity had fought back against an invasion and won, but that didn't mean they were safe. Earth's people were no longer isolated, and the alien fleet's failure on their first attempt would only make them more dangerous when they returned. We need to establish stronger defenses, General Lee continued. And we need to begin developing our own ships, weapons, and technology on a level that can match or exceed theirs. We're not just playing defense anymore, Alicia said. We need to start thinking offensively. If they're coming back, we need to be able to strike when the time is right. We'll need the technology, the firepower, and the manpower to do it. The leaders agreed, and over the following days, they began to lay the groundwork for the next phase of humanity's preparations. Every country, every scientific and military facility on Earth began working together, pooling their resources to create a defense force capable of standing up to the alien invaders. Research into reverse engineering alien technology became top priority as humanity sought to unlock the secrets of the ships and weapons that had so nearly destroyed them. But even as the humans worked to strengthen their defenses, they knew they had to deal with the psychological impact of the battle. The invasion had shown humanity that they were no longer alone in the universe, and that realization was both exciting and terrifying. For centuries, Earth had been a small, insignificant dot in the vastness of space, but now they were at the center of an intergalactic conflict that could shape the future of the entire galaxy. Back in space, the alien fleet had retreated to a remote system, far from Earth's reach. Their ships were damaged, their morale shattered, but Zithar, the commander of the alien forces, was not ready to give up. He sat in the quiet command center of his flagship, his face grim as he reviewed the damage reports. The defeat had been hard to swallow, but it had also been a valuable lesson. The humans were not as weak and unprepared as they had assumed. They had power, and they had the will to use it. We underestimated them, Zethar muttered to himself, his fingers tracing the scars on the hull of his ship. But we won't make that mistake again. His officers were silent, each one lost in their thoughts. The alien fleet had suffered heavy casualties, and the retreat had been a humiliating blow. But Zethar knew that their failure was not the end. The humans had proven they could fight, but they had also shown their vulnerability. Their fleet was smaller, and their technology, while impressive, was still far behind the aliens in some areas. We need to rebuild, Zethar said, finally breaking the silence. We need to prepare for the next assault. We will return stronger, and when we do, the humans will not be able to stop us. His officers nodded in agreement. They had lost this round, but they were determined to win the war. The alien fleet would rebuild, refit, and reinforce its forces. When they returned, they would strike with everything they had, and they would not make the same mistake twice. On Earth, the preparations for the next battle continued. The human fleet, although victorious, was still a fledgling force in the grand scheme of things. They had won the first battle, but they knew they were facing a much larger, more powerful enemy. The next time the aliens came, they would not have the element of surprise. The humans would be ready, but they also knew that they would have to act quickly and decisively to stand any chance of winning. Captain Alicia Reynolds stood on the deck of the human flagship, gazing out at the stars. She felt the weight of the responsibility that rested on her shoulders. She had led her crew to victory once, but the next battle would be different. The aliens would return, and when they did, they would not be the same force they had faced before. Ready or not, we're going to have to fight again, she said quietly to herself. And this time, we'll be ready. The silence of space seemed to answer her words, the vastness stretching out in every direction. There was no turning back now. The war had begun, and humanity had proven they were willing to fight for their place in the stars. The preparations were underway, but there was still much to be done. Humanity would rise to the challenge, but only time would tell if they could hold their ground against an enemy that had once thought of them as insignificant. As the Earth's leaders and military forces continued to ready themselves for the return of the alien fleet, one thing was certain: Earth would never be the same, and the galaxy would soon know that humanity had earned its place among the stars. The days that followed the retreat of the alien fleet were a whirlwind of activity for the humans. Across the planet, the global defense systems were being revamped, military strategies were refined, and every nation that had been a part of the Earth Defense Alliance doubled down on their commitment. The human race had narrowly escaped total annihilation, and now they would prepare for the inevitable return of the alien invaders. It was no longer a matter of if, but when. Captain Alicia Reynolds and her crew remained at the forefront of Earth's preparations. She was no longer just the commander of a battleship. She was the face of humanity's determination to survive. The victory against the alien fleet had been significant, but Alicia knew it had only delayed the inevitable. The aliens would return, and when they did, humanity had to be ready for the fight of their lives. In the heart of Earth's military command center, a massive war room was filled with top commanders, strategists, and scientists. Alicia stood at the head of the table, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The alien fleet had retreated to a distant sector of the galaxy to lick its wounds, but the damage done was substantial. Z-Third, their leader, had underestimated humanity, and now the entire galaxy was watching to see how the humans would respond. "We know the aliens will return, but we don't know when or how they'll strike," General Marcus Lee said, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to fortify Earth's defenses, improve our weaponry, and develop tactics that will give us an edge." Alicia nodded, her gaze steady. "The key is to strike before they can regroup and launch another offensive. We can't afford to wait until they're ready." Her team had already begun working on new technologies, reverse engineering the alien ships they had captured during the battle. They had learned more in the past few weeks than they had in years of scientific research. Humanity was no longer relying on borrowed technology. They were creating their own advancements, integrating alien technology into their own designs. However, despite all their preparations, Alicia couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest. The alien fleet had retreated, but they hadn't been defeated. They had simply been forced to rethink their approach. The humans had been clever, had used their ingenuity to exploit the weaknesses in the alien ships. But the next time the aliens attacked, they would be even more prepared. In the quiet of her personal quarters aboard the human flagship, Alicia sat alone, staring out at the stars through the ship's viewport. It was a peaceful sight, the vast expanse of space seemingly so tranquil. But Alicia knew better than to be lulled by the calm. The war was far from over. The quiet was broken by a soft chime, signaling an incoming communication. It was a secure transmission, one that only a few people in the entire fleet had access to. Alicia answered the call, and the familiar face of her second-in-command, Commander Harris, appeared on the screen. "Captain," Harris said, his expression serious, "we've received a new message from the alien fleet." Alicia's heart skipped a beat. "What does it say?" "It's a warning," Harris replied. "They're coming back, and they're not coming alone." Alicia's brow furrowed. "What do you mean, not alone?" "They've called for reinforcements," Harris said, his voice tinged with concern. "They've reached out to other alien factions in the galaxy, groups we've never encountered before. We don't know how many ships are coming, but there'll be more than we've faced before." The weight of his words hit Alicia like a physical blow. The aliens were gathering in Armada, and they were coming with new allies, ones who might be even more dangerous than the first wave. Humanity had thought it was facing a single formidable enemy, but now it was clear that this was just the beginning of something much larger. Alicia's mind raced as she processed the information. The battle they had won was a victory in isolation, but now the stakes had grown exponentially. She knew that if they didn't act quickly, Earth might be swarmed by a fleet larger and more powerful than they could ever hope to defeat. "We need to inform the rest of the fleet," Alicia said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. Prepare the humans for the worst. We can't wait any longer. We need to be ready to face this new threat head-on. Over the following days, the atmosphere on Earth shifted from cautious optimism to tense determination. Governments, scientists, and military leaders united in a common cause. Humanity had proven it could stand against the aliens, but now it had to face an even greater challenge. The threat of a coalition of alien factions, unknown and potentially more deadly, loomed on the horizon. Alicia, leading the human fleet, worked tirelessly with her crew to refine their tactics and strategies. New weapons were developed. Alien technology was reverse-engineered at an unprecedented pace, and humanity's first true intergalactic fleet was formed. They would no longer be a defenseless planet waiting for an invasion. They would be ready to fight back, to take the fight to the enemy. As the alien reinforcements made their way through the stars, humanity's new fleet stood at the ready. The preparations were complete. The humans had learned, adapted, and strengthened their forces. Their resolve had hardened into something unbreakable. The final countdown had begun. The human fleet would face the alien coalition head-on, and the fate of Earth would be determined in the battles to come. The first fight had shown that humanity could not be defeated by force alone. It was their will, their ingenuity, and their heart that would guide them through the darkness of space. Captain Alicia Reynolds stood at the command deck of the flagship, looking out at the vast expanse of stars, her gaze unwavering. "They thought we were weak," she said, her voice low and determined. "But they've made a grave mistake." And with that, the human fleet set course for the stars, ready for the battle that would define their future. The aliens had underestimated humanity once, and it would not happen again.